after you start out like that, nothing's ever the same. If they call your name out at class, everybody's turning and looking. And so it definitely changed how you go about doing everything. You can't really do everything like a normal college student. You just can't do it. And again, thank goodness we didn't have cell phones where people were taking your picture all over the place. That wouldn't, I might not have lasted, but it's what you want. But then when it happens, you're like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And again, I had long hair, so it wasn't hard to pick me out, and that made it difficult at times.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Zeebs HQ. This time, we're doing the Local Athlete of the Month for the month of March. We're joined by a very, very special guest, Steve Taneyhill. Steve, thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Just want to give the people at home a brief background, who you are, what your sports career was real quick before we get in depth on everything.
Okay. Steve Taneyhill, obviously I played basketball and football at Altoona High. And then I went on to play University of South Carolina, and I was a starting quarterback there for 4 years. Played a little bit of pro ball, not in the NFL, was at camp with Jacksonville for a little while, and then got into coaching and did that for a while. So, growing up in Altoona was awesome, man. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I went to Heath Junior High School and played at Altoona. When I tell people I played with Danny Forts and was my high school teammate, a lot of people are like, "Huh? He was in the NBA a long time." I said, "Yeah." He grew up on the hill there in Altoona, and Brian Ream, teammate, and we had a good thing in basketball. I was a big recruit in football, but our team just wasn't as good, I guess, as our basketball team was when I was in high school.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of Keith Junior High, Max and I also went to Keith Junior High. We were actually the last 9th grade class there at Keith in 2007. So that fall then, when we went to 10th grade, Keith Junior High closed down. For people that don't know that. Do you have any memories of Keith growing up?
Man, Keith, Coach Bumgarner was basketball coach, and
Yep.
I played, yeah. Coach Helinski, I believe, was my football coach. If I'm saying that name right, it's been a long time, but we were pretty good at Keith, both my 8th and 9th grade years. I got asked to come up and play JV football in 9th grade, and I declined because I wanted to stay with my guys, and I knew we would be pretty good. I think we went 9-1 my 9th grade year in football. And so I love Keith. I lived right there. My house was 2 blocks from the field, and I played a lot of sandlot. There's a lot of holes cut in that fence.
So there is.
There and play. But great time there at Keith, and good people and a lot of good friends, but we were pretty good in both sports when I was at Keith.
So did you always beat Roosevelt?
Yeah, we always beat them. They didn't beat us in any sport.
That's all that matters.
My 9th grade year in football, we beat them so bad. We were beating them so bad. They took a lot of us out in the 4th quarter, which you never had that. And back in those days, that was the big Thursday night game. They played it at the high school field before Halloween or on Halloween.
Yeah.
And that was you'd have all the high school players kind of hanging around at the field, and a lot of people came to that game. That was I remember those games. They were fun.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't have a bigger rivalry throughout high school than looking back at the Roosevelt Keith games. How much fun those were, and it's nice that went on for a long time.
Oh yeah, no question. That and then BG was right there. Mm-hmm. I guess especially in basketball. In 9th grade football we played them, but just a little bit different as you got to high school. I think our biggest rival became Hollidaysburg. when we went to high school sports, football and basketball. Not so much BG, but growing up, BG was a big rival at Keith, and I mean, definitely not as much as Roosevelt now, but it was a big rival as well.
Yeah, that's
Hollidaysburg
awesome.
was another one. Got tough. It got dicey.
Oh, I got a picture here. I'm in my home office here, and I got a picture that I got still up from Altoona, Hollidaysburg.
Wow.
It's one of my favorite pictures ever.
That's awesome.
I was just in 10th grade in that picture, and I always joke, I'm standing there, and Doug Pepper's coming there to get me.
I know, Doug. Yep.
I was basically telling them boys they didn't want any of that. I was just in 10th grade. I was pretty confident athlete back in the day.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, even I know from your college career too that we'll get into, but yeah, you're saying your 10th grade career and your freshman in college, I know you didn't back down from anybody, no matter how old you were, because you started too. You started basketball in 10th grade as well.
Yeah, I started 10th grade football and basketball. So, and 10th grade, our basketball season at Altoona, we were pretty good. I think we lost maybe 4 or 5 games. And then my junior year, we went to the state championship and lost to Glen Mills. And that was, Brian Ream was a senior and Danny was a freshman. It was like Danny was like the first freshman they ever moved up. Because like you guys said, the schools were different. Roosevelt and Keith were 7 through 9.
Yeah.
And so, but someone had to pick, Danny up every day and get him over there to the high school for basketball practice. And then my senior year, Danny was unbelievable. I mean, but we got beat, I think, in the second round. We shouldn't have got beat that night, but I didn't play very well. Danny played good, but we were. But Danny was a Keith guy. I mean,
that's awesome.
When I was in 9th grade, he played, and he was in 7th grade. He played a lot of games with us on the 9th grade team. We kind of knew he was
a stud from the beginning.
Yeah. He averaged 30 points and 20 rebounds as a 10th grader in high school, playing the biggest schools in the state. I mean,
that's incredible. Yeah, because Altoona is one of the largest high schools in the state of Pennsylvania. So yeah, you're playing at the highest level there too. So to do that in 10th grade is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, he was a good one now.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were a 3-sport athlete. You were on that team. You guys went to the state championship game. That was the first time Altoona's been there in 30 years. Did you ever get any scholarships or looks for basketball?
Yeah, I think I had like 11 basketball offers, but I kind of made my decision, I don't know, about midway through my junior year that I was going to go football. And again, I had 82 football offers. So I think just by that, even though I love basketball, but I was really a football player. I enjoyed it a little bit more. And I just thought that would be the better place for me to go. There's a 6'4", 220-pound quarterback is good, but a 6'4", 220-pound point guard or shooting guard, back then, they're just not there anymore. Those guys play college basketball are all 6'6", 6'7". And so it was about my junior year that I decided that, I was going to go play football. I almost didn't play basketball my senior year. I really focused on football, and I didn't play many summer league games that summer, basketball stuff. But then when football was over, we didn't really have a good year. I just said, well, I'll just go have fun with basketball, and the opportunity to play with my buddies, and then obviously Danny, and I'm glad I played my senior year.
I wanted to ask about the recruitment process. You had really big schools checking you out: Miami, Florida State, UCLA, Alabama, South Carolina. At that age, what are you looking for in a college? How were those trips?
Well, I wanted the opportunity to compete for the starting job. So I looked through places where I thought I might be able to get in there early. I didn't want to sit the bench. Growing up near Penn State, and obviously they recruited me, and Pitt recruited me, but those teams, Pitt had like 8 quarterbacks on the roster when I was a junior. And I mean, they had the Sacker brothers, you know, Kerry Collins was in there. So I just wanted the opportunity to be able to go play. I didn't want to sit somewhere for 3 or 4 years. I wanted the opportunity to play. So I started on that route. And, you know, I got it down to 2. You mentioned my final 5, but my final 2 were Alabama and South Carolina. And Jay Barker was the starting quarterback at Alabama as a freshman. And I just felt like, man, and I didn't know, you know, I could have gone there and I would have, you know, I would have been part of the national championship team. They won the national championship in '92, but I just didn't know if I would be able to play. And I didn't want to go somewhere, sit for a couple of years and say, okay, I'm not going to get to play. I'm going to go transfer. I wanted to go somewhere and be able to play. And I looked at the South Carolina and Rich Bisaccia was my recruiter. And he's now the special teams coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. But I just developed a relationship with him. And then when I went on my visit, and man, I knew I could play right away. And they messed up. You know, they sat me 6 games my freshman year, and we lost all 6 or all 5.
Yep.
We won some more, but I made the right decision, and I wouldn't change it for anything. But you know, back in those days, they could call you anytime. You know, now it's kind of how recruiting works is it's a little bit different, but they could call you. I would get my phone would ring at that house Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. to midnight. I mean, everybody, and you know, I took some, I didn't take some. You know, my mom did a great job of, oh, he's not here, or you know.
Yeah.
But it was just hectic because they could just call you every day, and it really overwhelmed you. So when I got it down to 5, you know, it kind of tapered down some. But you know, I tell you a funny story. When my senior year, and I hadn't made my announcement just yet, but Kentucky came to see Danny at basketball practice.
Okay.
And you know, Kentucky had offered me for football, and the coach after practice said, "Hey, Steve, you know, you come to Kentucky, we'll let you play both sports." And I said, I don't think I can make the basketball team at Kentucky.
Yeah.
But back then, you know, they could just talk to you more, and now it's so much different. But you know, obviously I didn't go there, and you know, South Carolina, it ended up being the right place. I mean, I still live in the state, so and I have a business in Columbia at the university, so you know, it worked out, and I wouldn't change it. But those were hectic times. I mean, they could really wear your phone out back in those days. Thank goodness we didn't have cell phones. But
I was gonna say, if you had a cell phone back then, I mean, that thing would have been ringing all.
I wouldn't have had one. I mean, there's no question I wouldn't have one. It was just too much. You know, but that's how it was then. My mom used to save the boxes of letters I got, and you know, I don't know, 50, 60 shoe boxes full of stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It's just crazy. But again, I wouldn't change it. It was great. I mean, it makes you feel good that, you know, somebody actually wants you to come to their school and play. And you know, I think I had one school tell me I had to take the SAT over. That was Duke. They said my score wasn't high enough. I said, I'm not coming to Duke to play football anyway. But I'm not. 82 schools said my grades and SAT were fine, and one said I had to take it again. I think the one lost out.
Yeah. That's crazy. So did Penn State offer you? Because I was under the assumption that they didn't send you an offer, but they did. Okay.
Yeah, they offered me. Pitt offered me. I went to 2 or 3 games my senior year at Penn State. I went to 1, I think, my junior year at Pitt. But Pitt, my junior year, signed 2 top 25 quarterbacks. And it's one thing if you got to go beat out one guy, but they brought in 2 guys that were ranked top 25 quarterbacks in the country. That's tough to do. And I didn't really want to go to a city, big city school. And I looked all along. I knew I was going to go towards the South. You know, playing in the SEC, you know, it was a great conference back then. It's nowhere near what it is now. I mean, it's unbelievable how good the SEC is. But you know, it was where you go to compete against the best. And but Penn State offered me, and you know, people ask me, who recruited you at Penn State? And unfortunately, it was Sandusky.
Oh man, that's yeah.
But you know, I never went up there on an official visit. I just that fall I just went to the games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so you know, I didn't really have a lot of direct. You know, I talked to you know, Coach Paterno a few times on the phone, but I talked to his son a lot, Jay Paterno, and then he ended up going to Virginia, and he was a quarterback coach at Virginia, and I really liked Virginia. I would have gone to Virginia, or really considered them if they would have maybe just pushed it a little harder. They didn't. They just weren't comparable to what these other schools and you know, how much they recruited me.
Yeah. Were you a Penn State fan growing up, or were you like a big fan of any college team growing up that you wanted like your dream school to offer you or anything?
I think my dream school growing up, and I don't necessarily think I was a fan, but back in those days, man, when you got an offer from Notre Dame,
I was gonna say Notre Dame.
It was the biggest offer you could get. Coach Holtz offered me my junior year sometime. I went out there for the spring game my junior year. And that was a great experience seeing that. And they had Rick Meyer back then. They were good. You know, that Florida State was about to turn the corner. They had Charlie Ward in those days, but Notre Dame was a school. Once you got an offer from there, that was kind of the one that, well, I guess I can play this game because, you know, Notre Dame's offered you.
It was almost like a I made it type of feeling. Like it doesn't get much bigger than Notre Dame in the 80s, Miami in the mid 80s as well, right, too. And you had offer from both. Alabama, you know, did Georgia offer you?
Georgia offered me, but they had Zaire. And, you know, I ended up playing against Eric 2 times. But he was a young freshman starter as well. And you know, he was already really, really good. And I just didn't want to go somewhere and get lost in the shuffle. Playing quarterback so much different because only one guy plays. I mean, if you play wide out or running back or line or, you know, any other position, basically, a whole bunch of guys play. But as the quarterback, it's only one guy plays. And you know, I still don't understand today why all these guys go to the same schools and then you see them turn right around and transfer 2 years later. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go somewhere, be able to play early and you know, stay the whole time. I didn't want to do what you see a lot of guys doing these days. I mean,
it's happening all the time.
All the time. I mean, you look at Justin Fields at you know, Ohio State. He couldn't beat out the guy at Georgia. And now
Jake Fromm.
He's going to be a top 10 pick, but he had to transfer. So, you know, I sometimes you just got to look and see the depth chart and see what you're going up against before you make a decision, especially at quarterback. A lot of the other guys play, but you know, only one quarterback plays.
And especially if that school already has a really high freshman recruit, you're looking at sitting maybe 2 to 3 years. Plus, they want you to redshirt. I mean, that's just. And the next thing you know, you're 21. You haven't played yet. And,
yeah. Well, the Mac Jones, the quarterback at Alabama this year. There's not many guys like him. Yeah. If you pay attention, he went through 2 great quarterbacks there.
Yeah, he did.
And bided his time. Now it's going to pay off for him. He's going to get drafted in the first round. But the year before you had Joe Burrow, he went to Ohio State, and he wasn't going to play. You know, he transfers. He starts 2 years at LSU, and obviously he's the number 1 pick. But that's just kind of how it's going these days. And I didn't want to, you know, I would have loved to have played at Penn State. The atmosphere there, you know, it's close to home. But, man, they had 7 or 8 quarterbacks on scholarship. I mean, that's just a tough.
Yeah, and Collins would have been getting recruited when you were, because he was a little bit younger maybe.
No, Kerry Collins was a little older than me.
Okay.
So he would have been there.
Okay.
But, again, he only played 1 year.
Yep.
You know, he only played 1 year, and then he came out. I mean, it was an unbelievable year he had. I guess that was 94, 95.
Yeah, undefeated season.
Yeah, they were awesome. But again, he only played 1 year. So I wanted to go somewhere and play. And like I said, I picked the right place. It took me 5 games, but then I played 40 in a row. So
yeah. Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff to ask you about that freshman year as well. I just want to backtrack real quick to your high school career here. I have your junior year, you guys were 1-3, and then you took over the starting job, led the Mountain Lions to 6 straight wins, and 5 of them being last-minute scoring drives to finish that season 7-3. Do you have any like real favorite memories or a game from not only that year but at Altoona in general?
Football wise, my junior year, we beat Williamsport on the last play of the game. I scrambled around left and scrambled around right and threw the ball from the right sideline all the way to the left corner of the end zone, and Bucky Early caught it. And then I kicked the extra point to win. I think we won 2019 or 1918. But that was probably, if I look back, that was, one of my great plays in football. That was it. No time on the clock. And we found a way to win. And I kicked the extra point, which even
you scored all 7.
What's that?
You scored all 7 points.
Yeah. And we needed it to win by 1 point. So that was awesome. We won a lot of games my junior year there at the very end of the game. I think we beat Punxsutawney a couple weeks later, same thing. Drove the last, it wasn't at the very end, but drove down the last 2 minutes and won. And so that was, that was a fun year. And I grew up with those guys on that team. I was really the older guys I was best friends with. And and Bucky Early was my receiver from when I was at Juniata Gap playing flag football. So we played together in grade school, then at Keith, and then at high school. So, I had he was my receiver. To this day, people ask me who's the best hands you've seen, and I say, well, Bucky Early, man. When you grow up with someone and play football with them since you're in the 3rd grade, he was a good one, man. He won the blanket at Altoona. He went to Bloomsburg, I think, and played, and he was a heck of a player. But that one play against Williamsport is probably my most memorable play at Altoona as far as football is concerned.
Yeah, and that's awesome that it was like your best friend. It's like something you draw up in the backyard growing up, like just the junior Gap days. That might have been something,
Oh, yeah.
You talk about like, hey, one day we're going to play for Altoona and I'm going to throw you the game-winning pass. Like, and Williamsport was kind of a rival back then too.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a big win.
Yeah, they were a big rival. We didn't like Williamsport in football, and we really didn't like Williamsport in basketball. So to have it be them was definitely awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Like I said, that year I found out you guys won 5 straight games on last-minute scoring drives, which is pretty impressive. So
yeah, that was we didn't start out too good, but we finished strong that year.
Yeah, and then your senior year, you broke the passing record. You had 2,172 passing yards at Altoona your senior year, and that, I guess, when did you decide on South Carolina? Like at the end of the season, or was it during the middle of?
Nah, I didn't know. I kind of cut everything back a little bit during the actual season, and again, we went into that season ranked pretty high in the state, and we didn't play well. We didn't have a good year.
6-4 season that year.
Yeah, we didn't play very well, and we lost some games that we should have won probably, but I didn't know. I visited South Carolina when they played Clemson in November of, I guess that'd have been 91, and then I flew home, and my sister was playing a basketball game at St. Francis. She was at George Mason. I flew home. I watched that game. And then Alabama picked me up in their private jet, and I visited Alabama on Monday before they played an SEC championship game. And I liked Alabama, but it was 19 hours away from home. South Carolina was 10. I knew my parents would go to every game they could. And then just the quarterback, if Jay Barker beat me out, would I sit there? I liked Coach Bisach. I had a great relationship with him. 2 years, I guess all my junior year and all my senior year, he called me every Wednesday night at 10:30. That was our time. I talked on the phone. And then when I visited South Carolina, everybody was young. Like all these starters were freshmen and sophomores. And, I felt like we could be good one day. So I didn't make up my mind until, in December sometime. And I committed on, I think, like January 5th or something. And then signing day was in February.
So then we get to freshman year at South Carolina. It's great because when we do our research, we were being born when you were at the top of your college career. So it's really neat reading this and then just hearing the crazy amount of confidence you had going in there. And I'm sure you were pretty confident in your skill at that point, but how much was that just your personality throughout sports? Were you a trash talker?
Oh yeah, no question. I played sports. That's all I did. I do a lot more now. Like I'm into hunting and I do those type of stuff. But growing up, I just played sports. We played baseball in the summer and then football in the fall and basketball pretty much year round. And so that's all I did. And so when you go to college and again, we start out 0-5 on my freshman year and we weren't scoring any points. It'd have been one thing if the offense was playing well and you're still getting beat. But we just weren't, our defense was really good. We weren't putting up any points. And, I kept telling them, give me a chance. And the quarterbacks weren't playing that good. And I think they didn't do it because I wasn't a great practice player. But again, like Allen Iverson said, like you're going to judge somebody on practice.
Yes.
And I had pretty much been a starter in every sport, my whole life. And, the couple times they put me in those first 5 games, you're in there as a backup. You don't have control of the team. And they're putting you in because you're getting beat. It's hard to be a backup quarterback and get thrown in there when you're not winning and they expect you to do good things. I told them I needed to be out there the first play of the game. And when they finally did that, we played Mississippi State at home. They were ranked like 15th in the country. And I didn't have the greatest game, but we scored 21 points and we won. Yeah. And, that set off a storm that, I don't think I was ready for or it got serious after that. You realize that, college football is a little different than, growing up in Altoona and playing against Hollidaysburg. You're going up against Mississippi State and turn around and play Vandy and then Tennessee comes to town. I mean, it was a whirlwind, those 6 games. And it definitely, it pretty much changed my life, those 6 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw a thing on an article I read your freshman year when you guys were 0-5. You told your coach at the time, who was Sparky Woods, I believe, you were quoted by Sports Illustrated to say, "Start me and we will win." And surely enough, you guys won 5 out of the next 6 games, and you were 5-1 as a starter. And that the biggest win maybe then was the last game of the year at Clemson, which that game, you want to elaborate on that? It includes one of the most iconic photos of all time as well.
Yeah, when I grew up Penn State Pitt, that's your big rivalry college, and it's big.
Yep.
But when you get down here, there's no pro sports in the state of South Carolina. So, I mean, all they have is the 2 big colleges in Clemson, Carolina. And in those days, most of our guys on both teams were from the state. So they had played against each other in high school, or they were high school teammates. And so when we got to that week, to me, it was just another game. I'm not from the state, but as the week went on, I mean, you could see how big of a game this was, in the state of South Carolina. And then when we got there, Coach Woods did one of the best things that he did as a coach. And I only played, he was my coach for 2 years, but, they run down the hill at Clemson. And, so we come out, the stadium is pretty full, and he holds us in the tunnel. And he makes the home team, if the visiting team doesn't come out, the home team has to come out, or it's a 15-yard penalty. And he knew that. So we waited and waited and waited until Clemson came down the hill. And as soon as they started down, we came out. And we took the crowd out of the game. You know, we really played good on defense that day, and we beat them. And I mean, when the game ended, you know, you're just so happy that you won. But it was the first, and I guess the only time, me as a player, where the fans came onto the field, and so it was kind of scary, you know.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm up on people's shoulders, and you know, you just really don't know what to do. And they had to send Coach Woods' private state trooper to get me because I couldn't get through the crowd. And you know, I missed the locker room. You know, when Coach Woods spoke to the team, I wasn't in there. I couldn't get there. And that set off. I mean, we just to see like the next 6 months, everywhere you went, all people talked about was Clemson, Carolina. And that's it. There's, you know, we beat Mississippi State that year. They were ranked. We beat Tennessee. They were ranked. But everybody talked about that, you know, the win at Clemson. And it's, you just realize at that point, wow, this is big. And I've pretty much lived here in the state since, and it is. The picture, you know, every year since I guess I played, it's in the paper at least one time. I really need to hit some royalties on that. If I had some royalties on that, you know, I could have quit work a long time ago, because
That'd be amazing.
yeah. And again, I mean, it's every year that picture's in the paper, and it's one of the few pictures I have. You know, my parents have one and I have a small one. But I don't have a lot of pictures, you know, but I do have that one. And, you know, and I didn't even do anything on that play. Here's the story behind that. I handed the ball off. And it was like a third down, and Brandon Bennett was the tailback, and he went across the 50 on like a 25-yard run, and we were running out the clock, or trying to run out the clock. And so as I'm jogging down the field, he's still running. Well, I just stopped. And then he got tackled. Well, I knelt down and pretended to write my signature in the tiger paw. And when I did it, the crowd kind of went crazy, and I just stood up and raised my hands, and obviously they got that picture. But, you know, I tell a lot of people, I didn't even do anything on that play. I just handed it off, you know, and I'm just jogging down the field, and you know, great memories up there. That place is, that rivalry is unbelievable, and the crowd and the fans. And again, because there's no pro sport in the state of South Carolina, it's either you're a Clemson fan or you're a Carolina fan, and there's really no in between. Even if you go to one of the other colleges, you're still a fan of Clemson or Carolina, one or the other.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you get a lot of slack from Clemson fans when you fake signed the paw, like where people like not almost death threats, but I mean, people were probably pissed off about that.
I coached Gaines Adams, who went to Clemson and was the 4th pick in the draft. And my last 2 years at Carolina, Brad Scott was my head coach. Well, he ended up being the offensive line coach at Clemson when I started coaching. And I used to be invited up there to sit in meetings and just learn football and you know, just gain knowledge on how to be a better coach and all these different schemes. And every time I'd come, and this is, you know, 15 years after that, Coach Scott would say, hey, you know, just sneak in the back door. We don't want anybody seeing you come in and out. And which is crazy, you know, but that's how it went for a long time. And I still hear it to this day. If I meet a Clemson fan that I've never met, the first thing they say is, and I didn't really like you too much. You know? So it's been a long, you know, 25 years or so, and I still get it from that one day. And you know, Clemson beat us twice, my junior year and my sophomore year and senior year at home. Clemson won. No one ever remembers that. They just remember my freshman year in '92 because I stood on the paw. And, you know, obviously that offended a lot of fans.
Yeah. And it was just like the emotion of what you were going through, I guess, you know, it's your freshman year and you just won at Death Valley, the last game of the season, you know.
Oh yeah, you gotta look at, and it wasn't just me, our whole team. We start out 0-5, and when we're at the bottom of the barrel.
Yep.
And then to finish 5-1 and win at Clemson, you know, it just, you go so many lows there going 0-5, and then the highs, and the week before Clemson, we should have beat Florida at Florida. We lost 14-9. We dropped a touchdown pass, or we would have beat Florida. But, winning at Clemson was, it was just, trust me, it was a life-changing, 2 months there for everybody, for all of us guys. And it taught you a lot about the game of football, to start out 0-5 and pretty much get whooped every week, to go 5-1 down the stretch. That's why you play the games. And, that definitely that season, made me a better coach later in life, just because anything can happen on any game day.
Yeah, the adversity of that just as a freshman, like it's crazy. Like you said, going from playing Altoona Hollidaysburg and then 12 months later, you're on the pod, just beat Clemson, getting lifted in the air. Like it's just nuts.
The best thing about that 5-game, that 6 weeks there is, we didn't have to go to study hall anymore. Once we started winning, they cut the study hall out. And, as a freshman, everybody had to go. So I think that was the most fun part, is I didn't have to spend 2 nights a week in study hall.
Extra motivation there.
Yeah,
hey, you keep winning, you don't have to go. So you're not going to lose anymore.
Yeah, a lot of things go into it for sure.
Was following that victory, and then after your freshman year, you're literally big man on campus. Are those the times you look back at with your college career where it was just, it seemed like a celebrity? I'm sure a local celebrity, no doubt.
Well, I had long hair too, and so that in itself, but after you start out like that, nothing's ever the same. If they call your name out at class, everybody's turning and looking, and so it definitely changed how you go about doing everything. You can't really do everything like a normal college student. You just can't do it. And again, thank goodness we didn't have cell phones where people were taking your picture all over the place. That wouldn't, I might not have lasted, but it was definitely again, and it wasn't, I just go anywhere. I used to come home just to get away from everything in and around Columbia, because you really just couldn't go anywhere. And it definitely changes you. You try to get classes at different times, the 8 a.m. classes, so you can, if you are going to go, you get it out of the way and get out of there before, it's tough. It's what you want, but then when it happens, you're like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And again, I had long hair, so it wasn't hard to pick me out, and that made it difficult at times.
Yeah, can we address the elephant in the room? I'm sure you're tired of talking about it, but I guess looking back, it's more of an extreme haircut. Whereas, which one of our dads in that day didn't have that cut?
Yeah.
Right. Well, here's the thing: if you look at it now, look how many dreadlocks you got and long, and it's nothing. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
The punter for the Chiefs, his hair way longer than mine. But it's not a big deal, but it was a big deal then. And I guess it was because it's the South, and I'm not from the South. I'm from up north. And so, and it's a person that's in the spotlight, and it was crazy. One of my stepsons has the hat, that they made with the hair out the back. I gave it to him when I found it in a box, and he likes to put it on and clown around. And they're like, "What is this? Like, what is this?" But it's coming back. The mullet's coming back, man. It's like everything else.
It has been.
Everything comes back.
That's awesome. So I did read that when people would address you by your mullet, like if they only knew you by your mullet, they'd be like, "Hey, are you Steve Taneyhill?" You'd say, "No, I'm not."
Oh yeah, I did that a lot of times. Yeah, we did a lot of things. When the games were over, I had, where my parents parked in the fairgrounds, they had 2 security guards that would take me and my parents to our car after the game, and they were with me for 4 years. So they ended up being great friends with my mom and dad and myself. And they would always, my first 2 years when I had long hair, they'd say, "Hey, can you put your hair up in your hat so we can get to the car?"
Yeah.
but and again, and I'm not bragging here, guys. You're asking me to tell you what happened, and I'm telling you, it was life changing for sure.
You seemed like were you not a big guy to like give autographs and pictures and that, like when you were in college? Like, would you rather have just been like left alone?
I would have been rather left alone, but I didn't treat it like that. I did what I was asked. I took, I mean, lots and lots, and I did all those things, especially with the kids. If a kid came up and you always do that. But sometimes if you're out to eat or you're with your lineman or I'm with my parents, it does get intrusive for sure. But it's what you got to deal with. I mean, and like I said, I wouldn't have liked the cell phone age because
it would have been even worse.
Right. Imagine what, and I'm not comparing myself in any way, but what, to some extent, what Johnny Manziel went through at Texas A&M or Tim Tebow went through, they were so big as freshmen that they just could never really do anything.
No,
I was to that to some extent, not saying that, but it was like that. And basically for 4 years, wherever you go, and I still see it some today. Obviously I don't look the same, but you still see it, especially if you introduce yourself. And I usually just say Steve. I don't say, hey, I'm Steve Taneyhill. I don't do that. I usually just say Steve and let it go. If someone recognizes me, they recognize me. But those days are over, man. They were fun though. I'm gonna tell you, that was it was especially fun when the guys from home came. A lot of the guys came down. That I was friends with and still friends with, and they'd come to 1 or 2 games a year, and that was always fun times there.
Yeah, that's great. It'd be so hard to like you're 19 years old going out to eat with your mom and dad like after a game, and it'd be hard sometimes to feel like just stay nice and like, hey, just let us finish and then like I'll get pictures with you after and blah blah.
Yeah, that didn't happen. They wanted it now. And then that's why you see these guys these days. I mean, it's a private room here, or I mean, they just can't go anywhere. And I guess in my little bubble in Columbia, South Carolina, or the state of South Carolina, that's how it was. Like I said, I came home a lot. If we had a free weekend in the off season, or now I went to summer school every summer, so I wasn't home that much in the summer. But if we had some time, I'd come home. Just so it felt more normal to go and be a 21-year-old, or go hang out with your friends where you didn't have to go through it.
But it's funny, you ended up staying in South Carolina. So I wanted to ask why you stayed there. Was it the people? You already had that reputation?
Well, when I started into the coaching and I started coaching down this way, it just made a lot of sense. I thought that I could get in the door to an interview a lot easier. And I guess I thought that at the beginning, but the first place I coached, we won 2 state championships, so it wasn't really hard after that. But just the weather down here, I mean, just little things. I just never came home. It was just right. And even now I'm not coaching anymore, and I live in Spartanburg, which is up and north of Columbia, but I have a business in Columbia and still have a place there too. But I'm still around the state of South Carolina, and it makes more sense really, and it made sense for sure when I was coaching to stay this way. And again, I'm not seeing what you guys are going through now. 10 inches of snow. It's rained a lot here, and I guess today it was about 52 degrees, so it wasn't the nicest. But I played golf yesterday. So
yeah, I wish I could play golf right now. I'm tired of this snow.
I was gonna say I have as much sympathy as that private jet you got.
Yeah.
Hey, that was one time that Alabama picked me up. That was pretty cool. And I don't ever flown one other time, so I was a little nervous for sure.
That's pretty neat. So did you have any visions of going to the NFL? What happened when you were finishing your college career?
When you're not a high pick, you got to go grind it. And, I went to Jacksonville and I thought I would at least get on the team, make the team. Mark Brunell was the starter, and not Brad Johnson, but Rob Johnson, who ended up going to Buffalo and being their starter. They were the two guys. So, I just didn't make it. I went to NFL Europe. They sent me to NFL Europe, and then they re-signed me, and then they drafted a guy late, and so they cut me. I played a couple weeks in the Arena League, and at that point, I just wasn't gonna just pursue it. It just wasn't the same. Now if I'd have been a higher draft pick, it's a little different at that point. But I didn't get drafted, and there was only, I think, 5 quarterbacks even drafted that year, and I didn't make it. And I really thought I'd go play pro football, and that's what happens. But your goals, they don't always happen, and you got to figure out something. And I got into coaching soon thereafter, and for me, coaching was better than, to be in the NFL and be the third stringer. I understand the money's good, but is it that much fun? I loved coaching and wouldn't trade it. And we had some success and had some great players and won 5 state championships. And that was pretty much fun. I wouldn't trade that to I guess be a third stringer and sit the bench. It just didn't work out. It takes you a little while when you're 23 years old to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now? Because I just always thought I'd play in the NFL and retire at 32 and never do anything. And my degree is a criminal justice degree. I wasn't going to be a cop or I didn't know what I was going to do with that degree.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of stuck. And but I got lucky and got into coaching, and I never thought I'd be a coach. My dad was a great coach in basketball. My sister was a college head coach. I just never thought it'd be me. And I don't know, it happened.
So with your coaching career, you led, was it Chesterfield High School, right? In South Carolina.
Yeah, we won three championships there in a row, 07, 08, and 09. And in 09, we went 14-0. And, we were just a 1A school, which is the smallest, schools down here. But we would have beat the 4A schools that year. We were a really good football team and great players. And they grew up in a small town, and we had 2 streetlights in Chesterfield. So it's a small town, 500 kids in a school. But they grew up playing every sport together since they were little kids. Where earlier I talked about me and Bucky Early being together in grade school. Well, this group of kids was that same way. And they'd always won in every sport. And when I got there and I got those kids in 9th grade, we went to 4 state championships in a row and won the last 3. And it was an unbelievable group of kids. And only one kid ended up going to play college football. He got a scholarship to Coastal, which is, all of a sudden Coastal was great.
Yeah, they had a great year this season.
But, he got a scholarship there and but he was it,
Yeah.
And that says a lot about those kids. I coached against Alshon Jeffrey, plays for the Eagles. His brother, Daquan Bowers. We beat these guys that have gone on to play, years in the NFL. And, that's a big accomplishment. A lot of people ask me who, I coach against a lot of players from South Carolina that end up, playing in the NFL. DeAndre Hopkins, when he was a senior at Daniel, we played them in a 7-on-7 in the summer and beat him for the championship. But I remember him and he was unbelievable, as a senior, but we beat him that day. And again, it wasn't a real game with 7-on-7, but it was
still a great accomplishment.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I saw Deshaun. We went against Deshaun Watson in a 7-on-7 when he was a senior. He was awful good. So I got to see a lot of guys, and there's a lot of good football players out there, and my teams are pretty good. We held our own even against the big schools.
That'd be crazy, like coaching, like you said, you were just a single A school, and then seeing a guy like DeAndre Hopkins or Deshaun Watson, like how amazing were they just as their senior years? Because now, they're 2 of the best in the NFL, arguably.
Oh, yeah.
So.
There was guys you go against as a coach you look over there and say, he's pretty good. Like, you
Yeah.
know it right away. With both of those guys, especially Hop was, man, we couldn't stop him. I mean, they could have lobbed it up to him every time. I mean, what you see in the NFL, he's been doing that since he was in high school.
Yeah.
When we played Deshaun, it was a 7-on-7, so the quarterback can't run. So that took away half of his, really true ability. But I met him at a Clemson football camp, and he was a great young man when I met him. And, he was a heck of a football player. But I've seen him all. Alshon, we played Alshon when he was a senior in 07. We beat Calhoun County, and he was awesome then, don't get me wrong. But his brother, the next 2 years was a heck of a football player. He played at South Carolina. He didn't go pro like Alshon, but he was good. He was a good player. I saw Jadavon Clowney play. I never coached against him. I did go against Stephon Gilmore in a 7-on-7. He was awfully good too. So
yeah.
I've seen him, and I had one of my own. I coached Gaines Adams. He was the 4th pick in the draft for the Tampa Bay Bucks, and he died of a irregular heart, enlarged heart 3 years later. But he was one of those kids I knew the first time I laid eyes on him that, man, this guy could be good, and you see him just get better and better and better. I got one now, the wide receiver at South Carolina, Shi Smith, is their best offensive player this year. I hope he gets in the 3rd round, maybe 3rd or 4th round, but I had him at Union, and man,
awesome.
he was awesome, and he'll be playing on Sunday. So I coached against Debo Samuels, plays for the 49ers.
Yeah.
He in high school he played quarterback, running back, wide receiver, free safety, linebacker. He did it all, and he was awful good player. His team went to the state championship their senior year. So just being a coach, you get to see a lot of these guys, and I could tell some stories, how good they were in high school, just because what you see in the NFL, they've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's probably especially fun for you to see all these guys in high school and now watch them every Sunday, and just gives you more people to root for and just see how much their game has progressed and everything, and see them succeed as well.
Oh yeah, and you want, especially if they're good guys and you get the opportunity to meet them, or even when that's over. I've met Alshon a bunch of times. And again, he went to South Carolina, so it's different. But you see him in the off season and talk, and they're good people, man. And that's the thing. And I didn't really get to know Hopkins like that, but like Deshaun Watson, I met him, and when I met him, he was a great kid, and you're happy for him that they, are successful. And then when they're really, really good, you're like, wow, that kid, you could see it in high school, but there's a lot of kids that don't pan out. They're this type of athlete, but for whatever reason, and there's lots of reasons, but I've seen some good ones come through, especially, as a coach.
So that 3-year stretch there, 07 through 09 at Chesterfield, would you say it's hard to would that 3-year span almost mean more and better to you than your big 3 years at South Carolina?
Probably, for sure, no question. Just because you're the coach, and you're not just one player, you're over them all.
Mm-hmm.
We won 25 games in a row in a 3-year stretch there at Chesterfield. In 09, that team, we averaged 50 points a game and gave up 4. Our closest game that year was 21 points. So we were only losing that year for 1 minute and 13 seconds all year.
That's incredible.
And we beat one team 70-0 and 69-0. Twice we beat them. And they talked a lot of junk to us after we beat them the first time, and then we caught them in the first round of the playoffs and beat them by one more point. So, we had a lot of fun, and those kids are great. And they were great kids, and being in a small town like that, it's when you see like movies of these small towns, that was it. When I was in Chesterfield at 3:00 on Friday, there was no businesses open.
Wow.
And they tailgated there before the games like colleges do. And, they supported the kids, and that was the best part, just seeing those fans and those kids go through from a small town, what truly small town high school football is like. You know, we filled up every place we went. And again, I mean, we played Chirac in 08. And there was, I think, 8,200 fans at the game for a high school game. And there's not 8,200 people in Chirac and Chesterfield combined. And we won like 29-28. It was an unbelievable game, but just crazy, you know, crazy. Just, you know, they had 2 NFL players come out of that team. And so I wouldn't trade those 3 years. I mean, just even for 06, you know, we lost in the state championship game by 21-20.
That's a heartbreaker.
It was tough, but, you know, it was my second year there coaching. Those kids had never won. They won like 3 games. We won 3 games the year before. And here we are in the state championship game. And, you know, if we would have had a kicker, we probably would have won. But we didn't, you know, we didn't have a kicker. And, you know, we had a chance to win that game. But that group in 06 was really more important than the other kids, because that senior class really led the way for what would be, you know, 3 in a row.
Yeah, I was going to say they basically just set the foundation up for what was to come. And
they did everything I asked. Well, we worked out year round, and they had never done those things, and they had to really buy into what I was doing, and they did it. And once we won, then, you know, then every kid wanted to be a part of it. And, you know, but I don't know, it's tough. My freshman year at Carolina and then my junior year, we won the first bowl game ever for the university. Those 2 years, I mean, they're very comparable to the 3-year run there at Chesterfield. It's I don't know how you could pick apart. You know, one year a player, you're just one guy of 85. The other one, you know, you're the complete leader of the whole show. So, but both are very important and obviously memorable. Yeah, and those are just 2 huge different stages of life too, especially like a maturity level. You're a 20-year-old kid, you know, starting quarterback at South Carolina versus being in, you know, your 30s coaching younger high school kids. So it's a whole different, you know, ball game there as well. Oh yeah, for sure. No question. There's definitely a lot of maturity between 19 and 35. Yeah. So I do have here, yeah, you led South Carolina their first ever bowl win. You were the MVP of the CarQuest Bowl when you beat West Virginia. Was that the same game? Yeah, that was, you know, I had come home there for a couple of days, and I told some of the guys, I said, you know, that I did an interview with the Channel 10 or the Altoona Mirror, whatever. And I said, they asked me, you know, what would be and I never said being an MVP. I said, I want a rushing touchdown. I want to run one in. You know, I wasn't known to run. And I did. I ran one in against West Virginia and jumped over a guy and took off my helmet and celebrated a little bit. It was fun. But, you know, to that group, you know, we started out 4-1 that year, and we won at LSU, which is unbelievable place to go win at. You know, we beat them 18-17 and had some great wins and beat Clemson 33-7 there to get us into the bowl game. But as long as that school, you know, has been there and played football, you know, it was 100 years, 100 years in 1992. We were the first team to ever win a bowl game. And that's, you know, you can say, well, hey, you know, in 1984, they were ranked number 2 in the country, and they were, but they didn't win a bowl game. And we were the first group to do it. And, you know, and I was the MVP. You know, I got a trophy right here. And I used to have the game ball. We took a knee on the last play, and they never switched the ball. So I had the West Virginia ball. And awesome. Someone stole it from my house when I lived in Greenwood, and I don't know where that's at. But I wish I had that one. I got a whole bunch of other ones here, but I'd like to have that ball still. But that was awesome. You know, that was a good football team, and we were a great group of friends on that team. And again, that year went kind of high and then down and then back up at the end. And you know, when you win the bowl game, again, no matter what, I mean, they can say stats and all that's going to be broke someday, but the first team to ever win a bowl game for the university, you know, that means something. And you won at both Death Valleys that year, at LSU and Clemson. Yeah,
mean,
I'm as a player, I was 3-0 in Death Valley, twice at Clemson and once at LSU. I tell people that too all the time. And I tell the Clemson fans when they start, I said, I run at the real Death Valley. That's LSU.
yeah.
And, they don't like that too much. And I haven't said that in a long time, but I used to say that all the time.
Yeah, that's incredible to win. And that was the same season to win at both of them.
Yeah.
And then the first ever bowl win. I mean, that's the best year ever there. I mean,
yeah, it was a good one. It was a good one. And we had a new coach, Brad Scott, and the new offense. We were in the shotgun a lot. And, it was so much fun. And it really took me that whole year to figure out that system. It was so new. When I first got to Carolina, we were I formation and a lot of play action. And then we went really to shotgun every play, 2 backs, 3 wide outs, really no tight end. It was just different. It's really what I did in junior high. My 9th grade year at Keith, we were in a shotgun. And, my senior year at Altoona, I called a lot of my own plays at the line of scrimmage in the shotgun. And, it was a big transition at Carolina to go under center and be in the I, and then do that for 2 years and then get out of that. And, that was a trying year, just a lot of ups and downs. But to win both those places and the bowl game, man, that might've been more fun that year really than 92, because we actually got to go to the bowl game and win. And it was against West Virginia, who I grew up. I went to a lot of those games.
Yeah.
I've been to Morgantown a bunch of times to see Penn State against West Virginia or Pitt, West Virginia. Those were big games, and to beat those guys and that was fun.
Yeah, so you're right now still your second all time in passing yards at South Carolina, 8,555 yards, and you still lead the school record in all time passing touchdowns.
Touchdowns and Jake Bentley had a chance to beat it, and he came up one short and then he transferred. So I think it'll stay for a little while longer. I hope it stays because they got my name up inside the stadium on one of the tiers, and when that record goes, I guess that's going to go too. But it's been there a long time, so we're still hanging on.
That's awesome. Yeah, it should stay because you're also the 2007 member of the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame, which is really awesome. Whenever you were in college, because you were, like we said, you're basically the man down there. Was there like famous people that you met from being the starting quarterback that you were friends with and stuff?
Oh yeah, I know a lot of guys. I tell you, I met Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish my junior year. My junior year is when they hit it big on the Letterman show, and so I got to know those guys a little bit. And the bar I have now is called Group Therapy, and their reunion tour last year or 2 years ago was called the Group Therapy Tour. Darius still comes around. He tailgates right beside us. We stay friends. But my senior year, one of the coolest things that happened, Johnny Unitas growing up was one of my guys that I thought was one of the best quarterbacks ever. He's from Pennsylvania. He went to Louisville. He was a great pro and one of the best to ever do it. Well, his son came to South Carolina as a walk-on, Joe Unitas. So every Sunday, my senior year at South Carolina, I talked to Johnny Unitas on the phone. He would critique my game from the day before. And, then I was, that's just unbelievable. When you grow up and, you're like, wow, he's one of those guys. I mean, I wore 19 in high school, and that was his number.
Yep.
And, when I got to Carolina, they switched me to 18, which was fine. But when someone you look, think was one of the best at those positions, and then you get to talk to him. I mean, I talked to him every Sunday, and he would critique my game from the night before. That's pretty cool, man. A lot of people can't say that.
That's awesome. That'd be comparable almost like doing that with Peyton Manning right now. Like, someone on that high of a level. Right. That's just. And I had the
opportunity to play against him twice. I played against him.
Yeah, when he was at Tennessee.
Yeah, and they won both times, but talked to him after the game. Sterling Sharp's one of the best players in the NFL. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Played at Green Bay. I used to work his camps. He's from Georgia, but he lived right there in Columbia. He used to have some camps, and Brett Favre came to that camp. I met Ty Detmer, came to that camp to work it. The biggest free agent ever when free agency started went from Philly to Green Bay, Reggie, big defensive end, Hall of Famer. His last name slipped, but got to meet him. I mean, I got to meet all these guys, and I have stayed friends. I talk with Sterling Sharp every once in a while on the phone, and I know Darius and those guys, and all that's because, I was the quarterback at the University of South Carolina.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Talking to Johnny Unitas every Sunday was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. Got an interesting question for you, going off of famous people. Were you ever into WWF at all? Because I've heard you had an encounter with the Phenom, The Undertaker, one time.
I've been in his same place twice. The first time I didn't really meet him. I went to a bar and he was there, and he sat by himself in the back, and I think it was probably like my sophomore year. And I said, well, I'm going back there to meet him. And the owner said, no one goes around him. He likes to sit by himself. When they're in Columbia, he always comes here because we don't let anybody go talk to him. I said, well, I'm going to talk to him. And I went back there, and he was sitting there, and he had on all black, the long hair. And he was so big.
Scariest sight ever.
And no question. I didn't go. I didn't go over there. And then, there's this story that, my buddy Val likes to talk about. I don't know that that's necessarily true, so we won't repeat it. But when Columbia, they used to have a lot of wrestling, so I hung out with a lot of those guys. Hung out with Sting one night. That was so much fun.
That's awesome.
The big guy that carried the 2x4 in there.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Man, he was so much fun. Like he was, what you saw was what you got. And I was actually with Kerry Collins that night. We hung out with Sting because he was with the Panthers then, and his left tackle, Matt Campbell, was my tight end at Carolina. And so those guys came down on a Thursday night in the off season once, and we got hooked up with Sting and those guys. That was pretty fun. But a lot of things happen like that. You just get in these circles and you get to meet all these people. And 30 years later, I can't remember every story. But Val likes to tell that one about the Undertaker. But again, I didn't meet the Undertaker that night when I was a sophomore, because I was nervous to go up to him. He was giant, and when they did that big special on him, now that he's retired, I watched that and was like, man, I seen that guy. I mean, I was 2 feet from him, but I got a lot of stories I can tell on Val too.
I guarantee it.
Too.
The big tight end. He always says he's the big tight end. The whole time I was playing at Carolina, he said he could have been the tight end. So the only time I saw him be the big tight end was when we came home and played like in the Turkey Bowl or something at Keith. And we got the young guys out there against the old guys. We used to play for a keg, and I think we won every time.
Are you still involved with football, Steve?
No. I don't do anything really. I do a little radio show up here on Thursday nights on Fox Sports 1400, and we do a 2-hour talk about football. I go by the stadium, every once in a while. I was really good friends with Coach Spurrier. I was okay with Muschamp. I could go over there. And I went over and met Coach Beamer a few weeks ago, and that was awesome. And he was there, before, so I kind of knew him. And, when my junior year, Ricky Bussell came to us as offensive coordinator. He left Frank Beamer's staff at Virginia Tech. And then after my junior year, Coach Bussell went back to Virginia Tech. And he was only with me 1 year. So I have a connection, with the first Coach Beamer and a little bit. And Shane and I talked about that in his office that day. And we actually, funny story you asked about Darius, we called Darius that morning from Coach Beamer's office 3 weeks ago, because he had never really met Darius. And they talked for a few minutes. I gave him the phone, and that was pretty cool. Coach Beamer thought that was great. I mean, he's just a young coach. and things like that mean a lot to him. Talking to, and Darius comes to every home game. He tailgates right there beside us, pulls his big bus up in there, and does a lot for university. So, but I don't do anything at football wise. I'm truly a fan of football. And now my stepsons play. They asked me to. One parent couldn't do it this year. They asked me to coach, and I said no. I'm not going to do it. Definitely not 8-year-olds. I'd have to have a mouthpiece in or tape on my mouth. Probably get in a little bit of trouble with them. But I'm truly just a fan, man. Just a fan of the game.
I'm sure that's a nice place to be.
Yeah, and not being involved, you get to see more, watch more. I usually come to a Steeler game every year. I'm a Steeler fan, and I usually get up for one game, hang out with the guys. I go to a lot of the Carolina games, but a lot of times I just stay out and tailgate and let someone else go in. If I want to go on the sidelines, I can do that, which is going to be cool here as one of my boys. He's a big Carolina fan, and that'll be cool taking him and letting him stand on the sidelines at a game. That'll be fun. But other than that, I'm truly just a fan of the game.
One of the last things here for you. You were inducted to the Blair County Hall of Fame in 2010. How much did that mean to you? Just to get inducted and honored for everything that you've done in football and basketball as well in the area.
Yeah, well, I told Larry McAleer, he sits on that committee, and y'all know Larry, and I told him he was like 3 years way behind. I should have been in way sooner. It was a big thing. My dad's in it. My sister's team is in it. And so to get inducted is big. I'm still the leading scorer at Altoona High School career basketball. People forget.
I thought so.
But see, now it would have been, and that's Dougie West, Mike Isolino. Now Danny didn't play but 2 years. Now Danny would have broke that very quick. But I never led the team in scoring, but I'm still the all-time leading scorer in basketball. So that's pretty good. I tell people that all the time. They're like, "You didn't play basketball." I was like, "I did play basketball." And 3 guys that from my high school made it to the NBA, and I'm still above them in career points. And people don't believe that, but you can see it right here. I got that. My mom made that for me. That's from the ceremony. That was fun, man. That was great. And being appreciated in your hometown, no question. I'm in 2 Hall of Fames. And when you're in high school, I don't think that's one thing you ever think about, but for me, it happened. One in my college place and one in my hometown. So they were big days. And again, people ask me where I'm from. I always tell them I'm from Altoona, Pennsylvania, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, because your dad, he coached 2 girls basketball teams to the national championships, I believe, right? And your sister was on the one team.
Yeah, they went undefeated. Like she was on 2 of them, I think. She always gives me a lot of grief because her teams were better than mine. But then I could open up these boxes and show all these letters or show them Sports Illustrated or freshman of the year football in college, and she can't say much about that, but all these sports are team sports, and she always has my number on those because when I was growing up, the Altoona Lady Lions, they were the ticket, man. They were good. I couldn't have played for my dad. I don't think we would have got along very well because he was regimented and they played, and I was kind of a freelancer. And I did play for my uncle. Coach Bitar was my uncle. So, Altoona means a lot to me for sure. Great place. Still, now my parents have moved. They don't live there anymore, but I'm in contact with someone from up there a lot. Like I said, I'm a Steeler fan, and a lot of those guys come to Myrtle Beach and play golf, and I usually get to hang out with them for a few days every year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you ever come into town much anymore or not often?
No, not much. A bunch of those guys, I got married about 1.5 years ago, and I think 10 of those guys flew in and flew out. They came, and that was fun. But I don't get up there too much. I do want to come this year to a Penn State game. Auburn plays at Penn State, and if I can get, if we can work it out with my schedule here, I'm opening another restaurant here in 3 months in Spartanburg. So I'm gonna have 2. So I don't know how my time, but I'd love to come up there to to go to a Penn State game. We get back to normal, I think, this fall and get fans back in there. It's been a trying year for fans of the game. You just wasn't the same.
Yeah, it hasn't been. I have season tickets to Penn State, and I've been a diehard fan my whole life. So I'm itching to get back, especially for that Auburn game. I mean, that's a game I've circled for years and years now. They were supposed to play at Virginia Tech this past year. I was going to hopefully try to go to that, but then,
Virginia Tech's a great venue too, man. They haven't been as good lately, but that's an unbelievable venue there. And then 2 years from now, when Penn State goes to Auburn, I'm hoping that some of those guys, my friends from Altoona will go to that game, and I'll catch up with them at Auburn. I've never been to Auburn to a football game, so that's one of my places I'd like to go. So hopefully I get up there this year, maybe. The last time I got up there, I think, was Hootie and the Blowfish. We're in Pittsburgh, and I came up and I went backstage with those guys and went to that concert. That was the last time I've been up that way.
Last question for me here. It's a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not, but did you apply to be the Altoona head football coach a couple years ago?
I did. I would have came back for that. I would have come back. It didn't work out. Obviously it didn't work out for them. That guy was there 2 years and gone. So
yeah, he was gone.
I don't feel that bad about it, but I thought that's maybe I wanted to stay in football then. I probably should have got that job. I was definitely more qualified, and I understand, and I'm not upset about it. Dougie West got the basketball job there. That would have been awesome. He would have been a basketball coach, and I would have been a football coach. That would have been fun. But it didn't work out, and it's worked out better for me. Because of that, I bought a bar restaurant and love it, and about to open a second one. And it wouldn't have happened if I'd have moved and picked up, and I wouldn't have got married. I got married. We were dating then, but she couldn't move, and so I don't know how that would have worked. So it's worked out better for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like it worked out for the best. A lot of pros came out of that then.
Yeah, no question. But it would have been cool to be up there and maybe get Altoona back on the winning football track. And I'd have liked to have been a part of that if it would have happened. But oh well, nothing's ever for sure out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. We both were born in '93, so to hear a lot of these stories just from the early '90s and stuff is just amazing.
I appreciate it. It's been fun. Maybe relive a lot of the last 30 years. So I appreciate you guys. Wish you the best of luck. If I get up that way, we'll have to go have a cold beer or something.
Thank you.
You got my number. You got my number now. Don't give it out to anybody.
Oh, hey, if someone offers me $20, I don't know.
And it's worth more than 20 now. Come on.
All right, I'll tell them 100.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Steve.
Take care.